On the 25th of October, 1944, the Battle of Leyte Gulf was raging, but one particular action, a battle within a battle you might say, was known as the Battle off Samar, stood out from a lot of the other engagements that were happening, and in particular, one ship, USS Johnston, became legendary for her and her crew's brave action of charging a group of Japanese battleships, which included the Yamato. It included the what? Hello! Welcome to another episode of History in the Dark. I am your host, Darkness the Curse. And before we begin, as always, thank you so much to my generous patrons, my British rail critics, and of course my underwater train finders. You are the reason why this content remains just out of our minds. And today, we are indeed discussing the last stand of the USS Johnston, a destroyer that fought in World War II, whose final moments are the stuff of legends when it comes to bravery and military action. This is the story of USS Johnston's final stand. The USS Johnston, DD-557, was a Fletcher-class destroyer built for the United States Navy during World War II. She and her sister ships were actually designed specifically to rectify top-heaviness and stability problems that had plagued earlier designs of destroyers. The Fletchers were greatly increased in size, and that allowed them to accept additional anti-aircraft guns and electronic equipment without sacrificing other armaments or causing seakeeping issues. She and her sisters displaced 2,100 long tons at standard load and 2,544 long tons at deep load, which is about 30% more than previous destroyer classes. Johnston herself was laid down on the 6th of May 1942 and launched on the 25th of March 1943. She was officially commissioned on the 27th of October 1943, and her nickname was GQ Johnny. Johnny's shakedown was completed the 1st of January 1944, and she served in several campaigns before her final battle, which included the Gilbert and Marshall Islands campaign, Solomon Islands campaign, the Mariana and Palau Islands campaign, and eventually she was led to the Battle off Samar. She was under the command of Lieutenant Commander Ernest E Evans, who'd been born August 13th, 1908, and who was actually of Native American ancestry, and his nickname was Big Chief. It wasn't all for show either. He commanded the respect of many of his crew. In fact, he had taken command of Johnston at her commissioning, and there he declared to the crew that had assembled, "This is going to be a fighting ship. I intend to go in harm's way, and anyone who doesn't want to go along had better get off right now." Now recognize that the Battle of Leyte Gulf was the largest naval battle of World War II, and arguably, at least in terms of certain criteria, the largest naval battle in history, with over 200,000 naval personnel involved. So this is a beast of a topic in general, and I'm not going to get into the battle as a whole. I'm just going to focus on Johnston for this particular video. The Battle off Samar was in fact the battle within a battle. It was the centermost action of the Battle of Leyte Gulf. Prior to the battle, on the 12th of October, 1944, Johnston had been assigned to the U.S. 7th Fleet, which was preparing to invade the Philippines. She was attached with a few other destroyers and destroyer escorts to escort, ironically, some escort carriers. They were their charges, and those ships all formed TU 77.4.3, call sign Taffy 3, which was a sub-unit of the 7th Fleet's escort carrier group, known as TG 77.4, which was under the command of Rear Admiral Clifton Sprague, who was aboard escort carrier USS Fanshawe Bay. The group sailed into Leyte Gulf on the 17th of October, and in response, on the 18th, the Imperial Japanese Navy dispatched 3 fleets to cut off and destroy the American ground forces. The largest of those fleets was placed under the command of Vice Admiral Takeo Kurita, and that fleet was the one, on the 25th of October, led smack in to TG 77.4. Kurita's fleet at the time numbered 4 battleships, 8 cruisers, and 11 destroyers. And they'd actually been attacked by US submarines and aircraft over the previous 2 days, but for some reason, TG-77.4 wasn't actually told that they were there? So they had no idea that this fleet was even approaching them until Taffy 3's surface radar detected it at 0646. USS Johnston was 34,000 yards, 31,000 meters, southeast from the Japanese position, and they were informed of enemy presence at 0650. 8 minutes after that, the Japanese opened fire. Thus began the Battle off Samar. At 0657, Sprague ordered Taffy 3 to head east at top speed and lay smoke to try to cover everyone's position, but Johnston wound up at the rear of the formation. Commander Evans ordered a turn to the northeast instead, so that Johnston could charge the Japanese for a torpedo attack. They laid smoke to cover the flotilla's escape, and at 0710, Johnston began firing on the heavy cruiser Kumano, who was leading a column of cruisers when she sailed into Johnston's range. Johnny fired more than 200 main battery shells at the Kumano over the next 5 minutes, and she struck the cruiser at least 40 times and set her superstructure on fire. Then Johnston fired 10 of her torpedoes at Kumano, and then turned to hide back in her own smoke. At least one of Johnston's torpedoes did hit Kumano, which blew her bow off, and that damaged forced Kumano and the cruiser Suzuya, who pulled alongside Kumano to render assistance, to retire from the battle entirely. Johnston has succeeded in knocking out 2 cruisers from the engagement by herself. That was already pretty impressive, and Commander Evans could have turned around and rejoined his group, having done a respectable amount of damage to the enemy fleet, but I don't think you understand who we're dealing with. This man has no chill, because at 0730, Johnston charged Suzuya, and as a result, she was engaged by battleships Nagato, Haruna, and, hold on, let me check my notes here. What's this other one? Oh, yeah, Yamato, as well as cruiser Suzuya herself. At 0730, Johnston absorbed 3 14-inch and 3 6-inch shell hits. That caused her numerous casualties and immense damage to her bridge and engineering spaces. She lost her gyro compass, aft 5-inch guns, and steering engine, which reduced her speed to 17 knots. She was hidden in her smoke and a rain squall for the next 10 minutes, and that gave them time to restore power to 2 of the aft main guns. The third was permanently disconnected from fire control, and had to be operated manually. After this, she turned south to rejoin Taffy 3. That's when she encountered destroyers Hoel and Herman, as well as destroyer escort Samuel B. Roberts, who were en route to make their own torpedo attacks following Johnston's example. Evans, seemingly just not acknowledging or caring how badly his ship was damaged, turned Johnston around to follow and support their comrades, and in the process, they exchanged gunfire with the heavy cruiser Haguro. I just need to stress here that they are charging a group of ships that not only outnumbers them, that contains one of the heaviest battleships ever constructed, Yamato. And Johnston had already sustained severe damage, but Commander Evans was just over here like, "Witness me!" and just kept on going. By 0820, the escorts had launched their torpedoes and then turned south, making smoke and still exchanging fire with the Japanese to rejoin Taffy 3. They accomplished that by 0840, when Herman and Johnston, both enveloped in smoke, actually nearly ran into each other, though fortunately this was avoided. Then Johnston spotted the battleship Congo, 7,000 yards, 6,400 meters distant, and fired 30 shells at her, and then evaded returning fire. Then Johnston saw Gambier Bay, one of the escort carriers. She was immobile, listening to port, and under fire from a heavy cruiser. Johnston briefly fired at that cruiser, but then she had to cease fire because 4 Japanese destroyers, led by light cruiser Yahagi, approached the other carriers. Johnston then engaged, let me check my notes here, the entire squadron, and opened fire on Yahagi at 0850 from 10,000 yards and closed to 7,000 yards. She hit the cruiser 12 times and was in turn struck by a few 5-inch shells. Yahagi, who was also being strafed by US aircraft at the time, turned to starboard and disengaged because she was having none of whatever the Johnston was cooking today. I don't know what the Japanese expected from Americans at this point, but they probably didn't expect them to be just completely insane. Johnston turned her fire on the Japanese destroyers, which soon also banked starboard and, with Yahagi, discharged their torpedoes at the carriers without any notable effect. Once this failed, they were joined by 2 more cruisers, and they all focused on Johnston, causing severe damage that rendered the bridge uninhabitable and set much of her on fire. Evans was still alive, though, and moved his command to the Fantail, where, at 0945, he ordered the crew to abandon ship. At 10:10, Johnston rolled over and sank. Of her complement of 327 men, 186 men and officers died, and that included Lieutenant Commander Ernest Evans. The remaining 141 men were rescued after 50 hours at sea, and Johnston was struck from the Naval Register on the 27th of November 1944. The story of the Johnston sometimes gets overlooked due to the large scope of the Battle of Leyte Gulf, but her final stand was one of the most amazing displays of bravery and duty in the Pacific theater as a whole. It's stories like this that make you realize why the men who fought in World War II are often referred to as the greatest generation, because they did crazy stuff like this! For her service, Johnston received 6 battle stars, as well as a Presidential Unit Citation specifically for the action at Samar. For that same action, Commander Evans was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. On the 30th of October, 2019, a research vessel, Petrel, which belongs to Vulcan Inc., actually did discover the remains of what was believed to be Johnston at the bottom of the Philippine Trench. The remains consist of a deck gun, a propeller shaft, and some debris that could not actually be used to identify the wreck conclusively, but additional debris was observed lying deeper than the RV could go. On the 31st of March 2021, another research vessel, DSV Limiting Factor, of Caladan Oceanic, financed and piloted by Victor Vescovo, surveyed and photographed the deeper part of the wreck and was able to definitively identify it as Johnston. She sits upright and is actually well preserved at a depth of 21,180 feet. That's 6,460 meters. In fact, she remained the deepest shipwreck in the world until Samuel B. Roberts was discovered on the 22nd of June, just the following year. Either way, though, Johnston and her crew succeeded in going down in history, showing what it truly means to mount a last stand. And with that, a special thank you to all my underwater train finders: Some Dude 267, Orange Glass, Benjamin Owens, Pincher Kitsu 131, Just 232, Josh Johnson, Metal for Life Guy, Anzac A1, Arthur Roy, Tommy Rossini, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Joshua Long, Brian, Jack Carson's Row of Videos, Hayden DeGrow, Master of None, Dr. Racer 78, Lord Hot 444, Alaric Jaspers, The Baxter, That Guy with a Beard, Mark Holding, Lock Kraken, Crystal Morgan, A Person 723, DM Trouble Typhoon, Ohio Trucker 1, Hendrick Motorsports Fan 5, Alfonso Lapuche, Royal Hudson 2860, and Ice Surfer 1405. Till next time, this is Darkness, and a bid you all a fond farewell.